So Terence Crawford knocks out Yuriorkis Gamboa in the 9th round. If you watch this fight, then you'll have a pretty good idea of why it was so difficult for me to pick a winner in the fight. In the end, I picked Terence Crawford to win the fight. But early on in this fight, Gamboa was giving Crawford a lot of problems. The speed, I think, was really difficult for Terence Crawford to deal with in the first few rounds. Gamboa was getting off first. He was beating Crawford to the punch. At times, he was nearly teeing off on Crawford. And it looked early on as if this was going to be a Gamboa masterclass. He looked very sharp. His in and out movement was throwing off Crawford's timing and Crawford's balance. And like I say, Gamboa was looking very, very good early on in the fight. In the 4th round, Crawford came back a little bit, but the pivotal moment in this fight was really in the 5th. Because in the 5th, Crawford was able to catch Gamboa jumping in. Because obviously Gamboa was the much smaller man, much shorter. And he had to literally leap in at times to be able to land his shots. And Crawford caught him leaping in and landed a counter right hook. I believe it was from a southpaw stance. Yes, it was. It was from a southpaw stance because Crawford decided to turn southpaw. I felt he was getting quite frustrated with what was going on in the ring. He turned southpaw. He was able to land his counter right hook. And he dropped Gamboa and hurt him badly. And from there on in, I felt that Gamboa's legs never really came back to him. And therefore, Crawford was able to settle things down, slow the pace down, and start controlling things from distance. His jab started to come into play from a southpaw stance. And he was really controlling the fight from there on in. Gamboa showed tremendous heart, kept on trying. And ironically, the round which Gamboa got knocked out in, the 9th round, was the round which he had the most success after the 4th round, I guess, because he managed to hurt Terence Crawford in the 9th round. I believe it was with a right hand. Caught him clean and managed to hurt him. But later on in that round, Crawford came back. I guess, Gamboa was overeager again, and Crawford managed to catch him and stop him. Gamboa was down, I believe, 3 or 4 times. He was down in the 5th. I think he was down twice in the 9th, was it? Might have been down another time. You can correct me in the comment section below. But, yeah, good performance by Terence Crawford. Managed to get the stoppage, managed to turn things around after a slow start and get the job done. A lot of people talking about Yuriorkis Gamboa was too small. He certainly looked a lot smaller than Terence Crawford, that's for sure. Maybe he is too small for lightweight, but let's not take anything away from Terence Crawford. He dealt with a tremendously talented fighter in Yuriorkis Gamboa, a guy who was very fast, a guy who had vast experience, and he was able to make adjustments and turn the fight around in his favor. So, small guy or not, let's not take anything away from Terence Crawford. Yuriorkis Gamboa showed how effective he could be at lightweight in those first few rounds. And he did manage to hurt Terence Crawford as well. So, take nothing away from Terence Crawford. Yuriorkis Gamboa also had a long layoff. I believe it was 13 months. That kind of inactivity could hurt any fighter. And I've heard fighters say this before. Not many people talk about it, but I have heard fighters say this before. I think Roy Jones has mentioned this before. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not even sure if it was Roy Jones, but it was one of these big-time fighters or former fighters. And they said that ring rust tends to affect you more, not early in the fight, but actually later on in the fight. Because it's the lack of rounds shows itself later on in the fight because of stamina and whatnot. The endurance, you don't manage to keep your shape as well when you haven't had the rounds in recent times. So the ring rust tends to show itself later on. I guess it's different for different fighters. Some fighters, they feel the ring rust affects them early. Other fighters feel it affects them late. But Roy Jones in the commentary for this fight, he was saying that Gamboa, basically, because he has so much experience in the amateurs, he's almost on autopilot in the first few rounds in the amateurs, and he's going to start fast because he's done it so many times as an amateur. I guess that kind of makes sense, although Crawford also had an amateur career, obviously, but certainly not to the extent of Yuriorkis Gamboa. So, yeah, it was a good performance by Terence Crawford. Let me know how you feel both fighters are going to do going forward, where you see Gamboa going from here. A lot of people are going to say this guy needs to change promoters. He's been far too inactive. They're going to feel like he wasn't prepared for this moment in terms of ring activity. Other people are just going to say, well, Crawford's too big for him. He needs to drop back down to super featherweight or featherweight. Maybe fight guys like Lomachenko down there and whatnot. Let me know how you feel in the comment section below. And yeah, where you see both these guys going forward. This is Hatman, I'm out.